Welcome everybody to today's session, the last day of this week for SANCS. Today we have our guest Johan De Wit, and I will give a short introduction before he starts his lecture. So Johan De Wit works for Siemens Smart Infrastructure as a technical officer, enterprise and security, and is involved in global Siemens portfolio developments. De Wit recently graduated from Delft Technical University with a PhD exploring the characteristics of security risk assessment. He is a member of various expert communities and advisory boards, like including the Dutch National Cybersecurity Center, ASIS, and the Information Security Forum, and oversees the Security Advisory Board. And today, De Wit will give us a lecture on cybersecurity of operational technology. Everybody, welcome, Johan De Wit.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here. And my slides are visible as well, so that's okay. I do this lecture every year in the preparation. I said, well, every year I update it, and usually that means that I add a few more slides because there are more interesting things to tell everybody. At least I think they're interesting. So usually my presentation is growing year after year. So I'm not really sure how I will end up time-wise. I hope there will be some time left for Q&As later on. So thank you very much, you all, for joining. When this course started, I thought, well, we at least need to have operational technology on the agenda as well. And I will explain during my talk what that actually is and how important that is. Well, to kick this off, first, we all know everything that we are in the era of digitalization, and actually there are multiple definitions possible, but it's kind of connecting everything to everything. That's basically it. And that leads to the fact that we have connected, and we are connecting, increasingly connecting, the physical and the digital world and building cyber physical systems. That's actually what we're doing. Obviously, as we all know, that brings a lot of advantages and a lot of functionalities that we didn't have before, but it also has some downsides. And this is a report of the Dutch Scientific Council that makes advices for government policies. It's 2019, so in the meantime, it's 6 years old. But they looked at the possibilities of digital disruption. So, and they actually said, well, we have connected everything. That brings a lot of advantages, but it also brings a lot of dangers. That essential services, essential societal services, it can stop if the digital side of the process is malfunctioning or not existed anymore. And they also state this combination of the physical and digital world. And the main thing is that by doing that, we have safety issues. And I'll come back to that later on during my lecture. Especially nowadays, and we all know what's happening around the world and all the geopolitical tensions that are there. They all have effect on the critical national infrastructure. We all get affected by that, and we see increasingly that these critical infrastructures are targeted in various conflicts. So besides the regular cyber criminals that want to do some extortion or ransomware kind of thing, nation state or nation state sponsored actors are very interested in having access to the critical infrastructure as well. So it's not a matter of when it will happen, sorry, not if it will happen, but when it will happen. And we need to prepare for that. And that's actually what this report stated for the Dutch government, obviously, that we need to be prepared. And I will come to that, how we can prepare our critical infrastructure, and especially the OT systems of critical infrastructure, to better protect them. Because, and this is a report, you can find all the reports, by the way, online. So if you want to read them for yourself, you can find them. So it's all open source, what I present here. And this is the cyber cyber report from the Dutch National Cyber Security Center, and it stated that all the processes that we currently have, so societal processes, there's no analog alternative available anymore. So you could think of financial systems. You could say, well, we could pay with cash instead of our card if the banking system is out of order. But on the other hand, a lot of the shops where you want to buy anything, they have electronic cash registers as well. So if there's no internet connection, they malfunction as well. So even cash would not be an alternative if the banking system would be down. So there's a lot of issues like that. So that's just an example. And they stated, well, there's no analog alternative left there. So there is definitely a problem that we need to face, and that has to do with cybersecurity, obviously. Well, the remainder of my lecture will be what we can do about that. Before we do that, I was already very nicely introduced. This is my introduction slide. So I work with in Siemens. I have a physical security background, by the way. So the guns, gates, and guards type of thing. And within Siemens, we do a lot of physical security systems as well. And many years ago, we saw that the physical security and cybersecurity kind of intertwined already. And I have a few slides on that at the end of my my lecture as well. I'm part of a lot of organizations where both the convergence of the different risk types, so business continuity, but also cyber and physical risks are combined. Few words on Siemens. Siemens is a global company. I have about 400,000 colleagues around the globe. And we do a lot of things. So these are the three main parts of Siemens. So Siemens Healthineers is doing everything around healthcare and healthcare systems. So the MRE scanners in hospitals, for example. On the right side, you see Siemens Energy doing power plants and electricity, high voltage electricity networks. And the Siemens core exists out of three components. We have mobility, doing train systems and infrastructure, so train infrastructure, but also tunnels, etc. On the left side, you see digital industries, doing automation systems for production sites, but also all kind of infrastructure as well. So think of bridges, opening and closing of bridges, things like that. It's completely automated with our colleagues from digital industries. I'm part of the middle one, smart infrastructure, and we do everything in the field of smart grids and smart buildings. So in my group, there are about 70,000 colleagues around the globe doing close to 15 billion euros. And my section, the building section, consists of building automation, fire safety systems, and security. And that's obviously the part where I'm in. And we deliver both products, but also solutions and services for our end customers. And we focus on the critical infrastructure segments mainly as a company. Now, physical security is what we see as the first line of defense for cybersecurity as well. So there's a lot of connectivity there. Without proper physical security, you cannot secure, for instance, a data center. So it's a part of a holistic security approach, I would say. So back to the question. We have an issue with cybersecurity. Societies are depending on digital systems. So what can we do to protect them? And one of the things is obviously regulation. So how can you make organizations protect themselves? Is by regulating it, kind of forcing them to protect. And in the European Union, we have a lot of regulations set up in the past, starting at 2013, when we had the European-wide security strategy, consisting of a lot of different components. Now you might say, well, I'm not in Europe, so doesn't matter to me. Well, it might does, because a lot of corporations that have offices or branches in Europe need to comply to that. And also the supply chain of a lot of organizations need to comply to the European regulations. So if you're working for an organization that is supplying goods or services to European-based organizations, you need to comply to these regulations as well. So they have a bigger reach than just the geographical part of Europe, but they have for a large part a kind of global outreach as well. So this was kind of the starting point, the strategy. But after the strategy, a lot of more regulations came along. So it was a kind of continuous stream of cybersecurity regulations that the European Union has set up. I will not go into detail of all of them, but there are two, the ones marked in orange, that I will cover in this lecture. So the Cyber Resilience Act will come later on, but I now would like to focus a little bit on the NIS2 directive. The NIS2 stands for Network Information Systems Directive. Network and Information Systems Directive is a directive that is set up by the European Union, and it needs to be translated by all the member states into local law. And there was already, as is NIS2, there was a NIS1 that's already in place since 2018. And when NIS2 came, that needed to be translated into national regulations as well, which in the Netherlands will be the Cyberbeveiligingswet. There's a little bit of delay in a lot of countries because it's quite extensive, and the government need to set up a lot of organizations in managing this implementation. It actually is about what was started off with the report on digital disruption, and actually it focuses on avoiding digital disruption of society. So apart from the organizations in the critical infrastructure need to be secure by themselves, just to make sure that they function. So it is in the interest of every organization to be as cyber secure as possible. On the other hand, a lot of these organizations serve a broader goal, which is society as a whole. So it's not only the organization. In case of a cyber incident, the organization is no longer functioning, but the main concern of the government is that that organization is supplying valuable services to society. So parts of society can actually stop. So that is actually the main goal of the NIS2. Like I said, there was an NIS, so the first one since 2016. And what you see here on this graph is that for the NIS2, the domains that are covered with or are called critical infrastructure expanded dramatically. So there used to be a few sectors that were considered critical infrastructure, but if you see on the right side, it's almost every sector is in the meantime considered critical infrastructure. So that's one major difference. The second is that it's the difference between NIS and NIS2. It's from organizations that's expected that they have more capabilities. There's more international cooperation, and the cybersecurity measures or controls that the organizations have in place need to step up. And in the orange box, I marked two particular interesting changes as well. So the first is, and like I mentioned, is the supply chain. So the organizations that are labeled as critical infrastructure, which was the previous slide, these organizations not only need to make sure that they are secure themselves, but also that their supply chain is secure. And supply chain can have multiple levels. So you might do business with a company that subcontracts other or uses components from another company that uses components from another company. So there's a whole chain of companies that you need to make sure that they have cybersecurity measures in place and that they work cyber secure. So that's the first thing. So it kind of trickles down, and that's the extent of the regulation. Like I said, it's not only Europe, but all the suppliers supplying something to Europe or supplying to a supplier that's supplying something to Europe need to comply as well. The second major difference is the accountability. To make sure that organizations do invest in cybersecurity, the managers are accountable for cybersecurity risk. So if they don't act properly to threats that they might face, then they will be personally accountable for that. And that is to make sure that at the highest level of organizations, there will be enough resources spent on cybersecurity. And that's a major difference there as well. Having said that, there's a lot of things in the NIS2 that organizations need to implement, and you can see them here. So it's it starts with proper asset management, so knowing what you have, develop incident and recover plans, do assessments, keep your software up to date, which is an obvious one, obviously. But there's also training and monitoring involved there as well. So it's not only making it secure, it's also keeping it secure and make sure that your employees are working in a secure way as well and are aware of the risks that they and their organization might face there. So it's a whole framework of activities that you need to do as an organization if you need to comply to NIS2. And like I said, a lot of organizations need to. So if you are part of the sectors of that are labeled critical infrastructure, you need to comply. And there is, to be honest, a certain size of organizations. So the very small ones don't need to comply, but the mid to big corporations need to comply to NIS2. So there's some parts of that as well. Having said that, I promised you all to explain what OT is, because we saw this cyber physical system. So I guess by now you all know what IT is, so information technology. OT stands for operational technology, and these two worlds have been connected over the years and kind of interface or connected to each other. So what actually is operational technology? What's the definition? Well, I'll give you some background history. It's actually this is kind of the industry. So industry 1.0. A long time ago, it started with a kind of processes, mechanizing processes with mainly steam power at the time. Industry 2.0, we started electrifying things. So electricity was developed and production processes were electrified. And then in the about half a century ago, we started automating these processes. So we had the availability of processing power and processing capabilities into controllers. So instead of manual pushing buttons or starting processes, it could be automated. And now we are in industry 4.0 for, I think, a decade by now. And that's a very data-driven, connected world where we're currently in, or the digital world that we're in. And over the time, we have started connecting. So we started connecting in the industry 2.0, making electrical motors and connecting them to switches. In the industry 3.0, we started automating that, so adding controllers and intelligence to it. And in 4.0, we added cloud applications and data structures to it. And we used in the OT world, in the operational technology world, we used a lot of IT infrastructure for that. So we use the same clouds that the information technology uses. So it's kind of completely integrated into each other. And that brings some challenges, obviously. We are all aware of all the risks and vulnerabilities in the IT world, and that they suddenly access the OT world as well. Now, a few words on OT, or operational technology. And it's kind of the overarching naming of a lot of different systems. So sometimes they're called industrial control systems, or SCADA systems, or PLCs, but also the domain, my domain of buildings, so building management systems, are all covered by OT systems. So actually every system that is electrically moving something is an OT system. So think of a train is an OT system on wheels, because it actually has a lot of operational technology in it to make it move. So it is a very broad domain, and a lot of components fall under this OT umbrella. Again, we connected the two. Now, I guess this is something that by now should be known by all of you. So for IT security, we usually focus on 3 different aspects. So the availability of systems. So is it according to your needs? So is it available to operate? Integrity of mainly data. So can you trust the data that's in your system, and who is able to change it, and is he or she allowed to change it? And confidentiality, and that has a lot to do with privacy as well. So can you keep your data in? So you need to look, when you're doing something on IT security, you have to look at these 3 aspects there. Now for OT security, there's the 4th one. So we have the same. So also for OT, we also look at availability, integrity, and confidentiality, but we add safety to it. As said, OT systems move things in the real world. Like a train is an OT system on wheels, and obviously with a train you have a safety component. Normally with your laptop would be IT security would be a thing, and it probably wouldn't kill you if it malfunctions in some way or the other. But opening or closing a bridge could kill people if it malfunctions, or if the safety features that stop the bridge would malfunction. So all these kind of OT systems have a safety component to it, which makes it more difficult to secure them as well, and we come to that. So safety is one of the main differences, but there are a few more, and we listed here a few. And I think you would recognize all these IT characteristics. Now for OT, it's very, very different. And the first is the life cycle. So OT systems, like for instance a train or a bridge, they last for a very long time, 20, 30, 40 years even. Or an energy plant is something you build for 50 to 60 years. So it has a very long lifespan, much longer than IT systems have. So servers, computers, laptops are changed more regularly than OT systems. Meaning that a lot of the OT systems that are currently running our society are from last century. So they are built and set up and designed in a completely different world than we're currently in. And a lot of them are simply not capable of having the latest security features that we currently need to have them built in. Availability is another thing. IT systems usually can go down for 15 minutes, and well, that might be a nuisance, but it will not kill people. In OT systems, we need a very high availability. So the electricity system that we're all using currently should be up and running. If it doesn't, then we have an issue. Real time is another example. So we can have some latency with your IT system. When you open a document in your system, it might take a while. Okay, that's not nice, but okay, you can live with that. But imagine having a process, a production process, and someone is stuck in some kind of machine, and you press the emergency stop button. You cannot simply allow any latency. If you push the emergency stop, it should stop immediately. So there's no delay accepted there. So there's a big difference there. Things like patching or updates in the IT world, that's kind of common practice. In the OT world, it's not. And that has a reason as well. And safety, again, is something. So take, for example, an oil refinery, take something big. They have a lot of OT systems in place, obviously, to run this refine process. If you would update systems, then just to make sure that all the safety features are still functioning after your update, these systems are tested back and forth from end to end, meaning that you have to shut down your process, test it before you restart it after your update. And as you can imagine, you cannot simply stop or start a refinery or other processes that either cannot be stopped because the process must go on, or you cannot simply restart them very easily. So that's a big difference there. So patching and updating of systems is not as easy as it is in the IT world, and often, therefore, it's not done. So we have a lot of old-fashioned or outdated systems still running in the OT world. Now, the rest you can see, a lot of standards as well. I come to some standards for the OT world as well, but there's a lot of difference. So, and the result of this is that, and this is coming from a report that's 10 years old, but it's still very valid, unfortunately. The OT systems are usually driven by the ICSP. In this case, they call it Industrial Control Systems, which is OT, as you now by now know. They are managed by the operational department or the operations, not by the IT department usually. So they're different organizational units with different responsibilities and different budgets as well. Second to that is that the operational people not necessarily consider their system being an IT system or being connected to an IT system. You can imagine that a train driver thinks he's driving a train and not driving a OT/IT system. So on the mind of a train driver, it's not necessarily so that he will be aware that his train could be even hacked or something. There could be a cyber incident to his train, something like that. Therefore, the people responsible for OT systems not necessarily have a security focus because they're not trained. It's usually not part of their curriculum. They're very operational. They need to run the operation and not necessarily think about these cybersecurity issues that might be there in their system. On the other hand, the IT departments, and you might be working in the future in IT departments, the IT people don't necessarily know or understand the difficulties of the operation side of things. So the things that I just mentioned in the slide before, they don't necessarily know or understand the consequences of their behavior. Just to give you a brief example, I had a big energy company as a customer, and we had security systems in place, and the IT department started updating all the servers, and one of the servers was ours, was running the security systems, and they updated all the BIOS settings of the servers, not knowing that for our server we needed a specific setting. So by replacing all these settings, and they did for all the IT servers, and our OT server was one of them, it suddenly made our security systems malfunction because the BIOS settings of our server were changed without us informing us. So that, and to be sure, they only did that once, and then they knew, so we can update everything except this one, because we have to consult the OT people first before we do that. Well, this is kind of a real life example of how this sometimes goes wrong. And as said, this is over 10 years old, but this is still the case and still very valid. Yesterday, I was at an event in the Netherlands for IT professionals, and I had a discussion with a medical clinic, and exactly this topic popped up. So I talked to the IT responsible, so the IT department head, And he said, well, we have MRI scanners in our facility, and these doctors don't want any patches or updates on the MRI scanner because they need to switch it off, and they are afraid that it will not come up again. On the other hand, I, as an IT manager, need to make sure that all the software that they are using is still secure. So that's kind of the clash between the two. So that was yesterday that I had that talk. So it's still very valid, unfortunately, to be honest. Another document from the Dutch National Cybersecurity Center states kind of the same. So there's a lot of systems, industrial control systems, as they call it here, OT systems, that are inside buildings. So that's my area of expertise, and we see similar things. So the ventilation or HVAC system in a building is not considered and connected to IT. So cybersecurity is often not considered. Now, in your office building, that might not be an issue. So if your air conditioning is not working properly, that might give you some discomfort. But nothing serious would happen, except if you are, for example, a hospital, and in an operating arena, you need to have a certain temperature to make sure that that no viruses are spread. So it's usually cooler than outside. So for these kind of circumstances, an HVAC system can be crucial. So there can be a difference there between where the HVAC system is used for. What they also said, and this is also over, I think, 10 years old as well. It's the OT systems are usually not part of the security policy, the IT security policy. So the IT department has a policy, but it doesn't apply to the OT environment. And often they don't even know what the OT environment is, what they have on their site. There's no proper asset management of OT systems, because they last that long, right? We have a long life cycle, so it can be 20 to 30 years old, and it's changed all the time. So there's no proper asset management. So what is actually installed? It could also be that some parts are 30 years old, but maybe it's changed, and some parts are added that are 10 years old. So you have a whole variety of different components in an OT system. That makes it very hard to have a kind of standardized policy for it. Having said all that, so how can we secure OT systems? So what can we do? We have a specific standard for it, which is the IEC 62443, which is kind of comparable to the IT standard 27000. So the ISO 27000, I guess, in other lectures that came along. And this is a specific one for OT systems. I won't go into details because it has multiple chapters. It's a very extensive standard, but just want to share some very nice things. At least I think it's very nice. So to start at the bottom, an OT system is consisting out of components. So this standard has in their chapter 4 a lot of controls in place to make sure that the components of a system are secure in itself, or are designed and built secure in itself. Now, as you can imagine, if you build a train, for example, the train consists of a lot of components from different vendors built together to make this train. So electromotor and sensors, etc. So the system integrator, which is chapter 3, so the one building the system with all the components from different vendors from around the globe, need to make sure that the components itself is secure, but the combination of components and how they are set up, that is secure as well. So the whole solution is secure. Then you might have a secure solution, but if you don't use it secure as an end user, that's chapter 2. So if you don't have a proper password setup, or changing your password regularly, or have your employees trained in a certain way that they are aware of cybersecurity risks, then obviously the most secure system is still not secure. Think of the door in your house. You might have a very good lock on the door, but if you don't lock it when you go out, or if your kids don't lock it when they go out, then it's useless. And it's the same here. So you might have very secure components. You might have a very good system integrator that's installed everything very secure way, and all the settings, all the security settings are right. Then if you start using it in an insecure way, then the security is also breached. So this standard is actually covering the entire supply chain, from components to the one building the solution to the one using the solution. That's what I really like in this standard. So it covers the entire process. What it also does is it has different security levels. And I just gave you an example of an HVAC system. An HVAC system is usually not very critical in a lot of buildings. So you might say, well, it's I can go with a very low security level because it's not that important, except when it's a hospital or it's a part of a hospital where it's a crucial element. Or think of a data center. If the cooling of a data center is switched off, then the data center will switch off as well. So the cooling in the data center is a critical asset to make it work. So in that case, for a data center, it will probably be security level 3 or 4 even, to make it more secure. So depending on where you use a certain system, you can set the security level of that system depending on the threats and the impact that it would have. So based on your risk assessment that you do as an organization. And that is covered in the standard as well. So you have the different security levels. It could also be that in the same system, take for example the system. So in your office building, the office building of a data center, it might be security level 1 because it's not that crucial there. But for the rooms where the servers are running, there it's very crucial. So the same system could have a security level 4 for a different part of it, which makes it setting up and making a security architecture here is a very interesting job. A small example from our own practice. So Siemens is using the IST standard as well, and we are both supplier of products and software, which is the upper process, but we're also a system integrator, which is the lower process. So we use our own products to make a solution for our customers. And you see the entire processes. So starting from the upper one, starting from planning development until releasing it. And as you know, the life cycle of an OT system is very long, so that would be far off this slide to the right, because it will last for 20-30 years. So whatever the development process would be, there's a life cycle of 20 to 30 years behind it. Now, implementing the ISC standard means that we have, for every single process, both of them in this case, for every single step in the process, there are regulations and controls in place, meaning that every single person in our organization for Siemens is confronted with this standard. So in every single piece of work, wherever you work, you are confronted with doing things cyber secure. Whether you're developing a product or program it, or maybe ordering products from a supplier, or setting systems up, or commissioning them, or servicing them, in every single step of our process, you need to take care of cybersecurity controls. And we have implemented that into the processes. So it's not really bolted on, it's implemented in the process. It's part of your work, so to say. And for big organizations, you need some kind of governance structure as well to manage all this. So we have specialists who help implementing all these processes to all the 400,000 employees around the globe. So that's quite an extensive work. But to be honest, this is an example for Siemens, but it's the same for a lot of other countries that use the ISC standard. It really brings value as well for us as a company, for our own liability, but also for our end customers who want secure systems. And as I said, we work a lot for the critical infrastructure organizations, and they need to comply to NIS2. So by doing this, we can show them that we are complying, we are using the standard to comply, to help them comply to NIS2. Checking the time, 15 minutes ago. Okay, I promised you another regulation, so the Cyber Resilience Act. That is some regulation that's coming up in Europe, and it basically focus on components with a products with a digital component. That's practically everything you buy nowadays. That has a lot of things have a digital component in them. So, and it states that this is for the manufacturer side of things. So if you manufacture something or build something or combine products into it, you must make sure for the end users, especially also consumers, that it's cyber secure. So you need to develop it secure. You need to document all the risk. You need to report actively what the risks are and what necessary controls would be to counter vulnerabilities that might be there, and you have to support it during the life cycle. So, and one of the examples that they gave when they started implementing this, there's a lot of toys coming out of the toy store for kids that are sold once but never supported, which are, for example, nowadays you have dolls where they are internet connected because you can have some kind of voice. You have them say something, for example, and this internet connectivity there is a vulnerability. If you don't manage it, then there might be some issues with that. So this is focusing all manufacturers of all kinds of components or products that have these digital components in it. You need to have instructions, etc., and you need to supply updates during the life cycle of such a product. So if something, there's some vulnerability inside your product, you have to supply an update for free, by the way. Is it the same for all products? No, obviously not. The doll of a kid is of less concern than critical infrastructure would be. So there are these classifications. So especially critical class 1 and 2 are the ones for the more professional environment and for the critical infrastructure. Would be for Siemens, for us, we would mainly have our products in critical class 1 and 2, which means that you either test them yourself or have a third-party assessment, third-party audit of your systems. Now, currently we already do both. Now, all the vendors are implementing these kind of measures to be prepared for the Cyber Resilience Act that will be come into play in 2027. And these are some examples of components. This is something from the documentation. So to briefly summarize a little bit, and this is from KPMG, very nice report on this as well. So on one side, we have the standards, which is the ISO 27000, more focusing on IT systems. And we have the IEC 62443 focusing on OT systems. And on the other hand, we have the regulation coming up. We have the CRA, which is for the suppliers, so that you supply secure products. And on the other hand, we have the NIS2, is on the demand side, so on the requester side, buying products. Just an example, and this is one of the slides I put in, just to give you an example of a cyber incident. This is also open source document. In last December, Polish infrastructure was attacked by Russian hackers, and it involved about 30 wind and solar farms. They were hacked, and a power plant. So there's also a private company mentioned, but that seems to be unrelated. So there was a lot of electricity power plants, so renewable energy plants were hacked, and this heat and power plant as well, involving 500,000 customers. So pretty recent, so December last year, a few months ago. And in this write-up, it's very interesting. So if you, I would suggest that you read it, because it really is a very nice report to really points out what happened. But what struck me is this. So they had some Hitachi components, and they were configured with default credentials. Micronica components and default credentials now, and you understand what's coming next. We have more and more devices that were in the network that had their default credentials. So the default username password was still there. And there's nothing wrong with these suppliers. So if you go back to the standard, so the supplier makes secure products, but the system integrator didn't install it in a proper way. So they needed to change the credentials when they installed it. Or the end user in using it should have done that, to change the username, password, credentials. What you see in orange, what they noticed is that some of the system integrators didn't do that because it's easier for them to install it, and they even have the highest administrator privileges assigned to that. Now you can imagine when you start installing components and even commissioning them, that you need to be able to change all the settings so that you have administrator rights and privileges at the moment of installation and commissioning. That's fine. But then you should change it back when once your work is done, and they didn't. Now, this is an example, so a real-life example of something that happened pretty recently, that securing things starts at the basics. So sometimes hacking systems is not that difficult because they simply use the default credentials that are in the manuals available. So you don't even have to do much work to be able to get in. Anyway, just as an example. Few minutes left. I will race through some hybrid threats. I promised you, or I started off with the holistic view on threats and the combination of hybrid and cyber threats. Now there are a lot of documents on that, so how the attack methods are combined, so physical and cyber threats are combined, and we see that coming more and more. So if you close things up on the from the cyber side, then people or attackers would try to be on site and use physical means to get in. And when you secure your IT or OT systems, you need to take physical security into account as well. So having this convergence of IT and OT, and we have discussed that in the beginning of the lecture, so these two different departments, I would like to add the third one, which is the physical security department as well, and you need to combine these three. And then we talk a little bit about convergence. There's a good report from the Information Security Forum on risk convergence. And as you can see on the picture, normally what would be done is that every single department has its own risk reporting structure, and you have very siloed risk reports, meaning that you cannot really compare an IT risk to a physical security risk, etc. So what they propose is to have one single risk reporting and one holistic risk report. That's another one, another nice report on security convergence from the Security Industry Association. And I kind of summarized this more complicated slide. What they state, again, is to have a holistic view on your risks, to have your business continuity risks also included there. And then on the technology side, so you probably have had some other lectures where you talked about these, the prevent cycle. This is one from the physical security environment. And actually, the naming is similar. So we do the same thing for physical security as we do for cybersecurity. We have intrusion systems, we have management systems, we have perimeter systems. So we do the same in the physical world as we do in the cybersecurity world. So it would be theoretically very easy to align the two. On governance, well, obviously, one example from the NIS2. NIS2 is prescribing, if you want to do the cybersecurity, you have to take into account the physical environment. But it's the same for the ISO 27000. There's a whole chapter on physical security in the ISO 27000. So it's a part of of your role as an IT security professional to also take physical security into account. Finally, it's about people as well, people and cooperation. And there's a nice white paper on that by the US government on combining and collaborating together in this security arena. So the different departments, OT, IT, and physical security, should collaborate to face these hybrid threats. And it's even beyond security, by the way. So security is one aspect, but cooperation could be very useful in efficiency gains and sustainability gains as well. So it would extend, at least in my belief, beyond security as well. Having said that, I come to the end. I think I'm right on time, and we have a few minutes left. So let's briefly summarize. I talked about security, but security nowadays is a lot about compliance, so a lot of regulations that you need to comply to. And security is also about convergence, so combining, have a holistic view on that. And with that, I'm at the end of my lecture for today, at least. So I would like to thank you all. I hope that that you enjoyed it and that it was interesting. And I hope I brought something, the operational technology, to your mind to take care in your future. And I wish you all the best with your future in IT as well. And now handing back to you, Isis, back to maybe some questions.
Yes, thank you so much. The comments in the Q&A are filled with positive responses to your lecture. They said that you did a really good job explaining things to them. We started off with a lot of questions about what's the difference between OT and IT. Well, you've answered those, I think, because we didn't get anyone's after you explained that, so that's really great. We did get a couple of super interesting questions here. A lot of them are related to the downtime. So if there's going to be an update or something has happened to the OT environment where the downtime can be extremely costly, what happens in this situation?
Well, like I said, in a lot of cases, there will not be an update because they cannot allow any downtime. So what's usually done in a big plant, they have these kind of turnover moments. So at one point in time, take for example an energy plant, it cannot run forever. So every 5 to 10 years, somewhere you have to stop the plant and refurbish everything. So there's a lot of moving parts which need to be replaced, etc. That would be the natural moment to do all the upgrades and patches and new stuff as well. So you have a single moment in time when the entire process is stopped. For example, in a factory, it could be when you change over from one product to another product and you change your production line. That will be the natural moment to do an update and a patch as well. And that you need to test it anyway before you restart everything. So you look at these kind of moments to do your upgrades and patches, which probably is not every month like we're used in the IT world.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question that we got was about the different levels. So there's the physical, the network, the system, security, integrity. Which of these layers is currently the weakest point in protecting all of this smart infrastructure?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the obvious answer, the weakest link is usually the person sitting behind the system. And what we've seen a lot of in cyber incidents, also in the Polish one, which I mentioned, the first enter to the network, the first layer to get in, is usually phishing emails or spear phishing emails. So, and it's focused on the vulnerabilities of people sitting behind it. And then when they're in, they have this horizontal or lateral movement through your system. But the initial entrance is via people, usually.
Okay, great. Then we also got a lot of questions related to AI and how AI has kind of posed a new challenge on top of the ones that already exist in the OT environment. So maybe can you touch a little bit on AI as a new challenge?
Well, AI is definitely a new challenge from the threat side as well. So we see a lot of threats using AI and making it more sophisticated and difficult to track. usually that's then the entry point would be the IT environment. So it would be kind of the same threats that you would face in your IT environment, and via the IT environment you would enter the OT environment. In OT systems themselves, there's currently limited use of IT in general due to the age of these systems. So you still have a lot of systems, like I said, from last century that simply are not capable of processing much data. On the other hand, we do have some connectivity with the newer systems to cloud applications using AI to process data. But we haven't seen so many attacks on those components as yet. So it's usually more coming from the IT side of things, where
Do you
AI
think,
obviously is a big thing. Yeah.
of course, and do you expect that to change? Because you say as of yet, do you think that maybe that's going to change?
Oh, definitely, definitely. So currently, the developments of AI in OT are behind on the IT side, but that will catch up at some point in time. So it will be more use or widespread use, or more connectivity will there will be more connectivity with OT systems. So that will come in the future, definitely. Yes.
All right. And then maybe something a little bit different, a question related to your career. So we have all of these aspiring IT cyber experts. What is some advice that you could give them on how to start their career or progress in their career?
Oh, that's I would say that's different for everyone. But what made my career is kind of continuous learning, and be as curious as you can, and try to read as much as you can. And like the reports that were in my lecture, I would definitely advise to read them because you learn a lot of that. And even if there are some things in the report that you don't understand, you can just look it up nowadays and Google it, or ask some AI model to help you understand it. And then it really makes you learn, and you never stop learning. So a lot of young people think that if they finish their school, that they're kind of done, and they're happy that they finished learning. But it will never stop. And to be honest, and that's the downside. I'm old age already, but the speed of learning needs to be increasing as well. So you guys have a lot to do in your future.
All right, great. Well, I think we obviously don't have enough time to get all the questions. This was a really nice way to end it. Thank you for all the references to the reports. The students can find the recording of this lecture on our YouTube channel, and then you can also see the slides, which will have the reports on them that Dr. De Wit shared. So thank you so much for this really, really inspiring lecture. The comments have been really, really great. Anything you would like to close on? Any final words?
Oh, I wish you a lot of success with this course, but also with your future career as well. So, and my email address was on one of the slides as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you so much, students. Thank you. And we will see you for the game session later today. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.